Hey everyone, I'm Marina McKean. Welcome to our interview series, Behind the Byline, where we get a glimpse behind the curtain at the fantastic writers who contribute to our team. Joining me today is Jordana Weiss. Let's kick things off. First question for you. What got you into the world of content marketing?
I've always been interested in expressing my thoughts through writing. I think that is something that I have just always felt more confident doing in the written word. And so I felt like my skills as a writer professionally have kind of grown from there. I joined ClearVoice in 2018, which was a few years after my freelance career really took off, which was in 2015. And the thing that interested me in the world of content marketing was just the ability to help people express themselves through writing and taking the skills that I had learned to benefit myself and applying it to other people in a more professional context.
Awesome. That's fantastic. I love to hear that. And what tools and techniques do you use to conduct research and gather insights about the topics that you're writing about?
So I think everyone probably has a different approach. Research is really important to my process, and having worked as a freelancer for so long, or I guess long relative to how a lot of people spend their careers these days, I've been able to see the kind of online research landscape change. Google search has changed a lot in the last couple of years. So I definitely still use Google search a lot to see the public performance of my writing, stuff that my clients have done before I came on board, competitor research. But I've started using another search engine called Kaji that has no ads. And that's kind of been something that I've been exploring the last couple months. So I would say that's a tool that I use fairly often now.
So I'm super interested to hear what kind of differences you see with using Kaji versus Google search.
I guess their primary differentiator is that it doesn't have ads. So that's, useful just in terms of like expediting things. But I'm finding more that if I'm looking for something specific, or if I'm working with a client that I know really prioritizes finding, .edu or .org, like authoritative sources, you could obviously find those on Google, but I'm definitely finding those more ease on Kaji. I actually think that's how you pronounce it. I should probably check. Kagi is what it is. But yeah, just being able to find authoritative sources a lot faster. It kind of cuts through a lot of other content that you might not necessarily be interested in if you're doing research as I tend to do for like clients into the technology industry or healthcare, where those authoritative sources exist, like from governmental agencies or public research institutions and stuff like that. Like being able to find those with ease and just having them presented kind of without comment is just really useful.
Great. Does it kind of surprise you now when you are going through Google search, like all the fluff? You're like, oh, is that an ad? Is that an ad? Does that come
Yes, it definitely does.
up?
Yeah, like it's easier to find those kind of authoritative sources, I'm finding, with a paid search engine.
Right. Awesome. And that does kind of lead into my next question. So, how do you stay up to date with the latest trends and developments in the industries that you work with?
I think really the thing that I'm finding is you have to kind of be intentional. I'm always really interested in reading the news and what's going on, so I try and read, like news sources like New York Times. I do a lot of writing for technology, so I listen to podcasts on technology news more specifically. One of my favorites is Pivot, which is really enjoyable, but also kind of gives you like a few hits of like, okay, here's two really smart thinkers on the latest news about X, or a boardroom deal at Disney, or something that might come up in what I'm working on, but also is just kind of context for what I'm writing at that time, and placing the information that I'm finding in a broader context.
Yeah. Awesome. That's a great way to frame it. That's super cool. And kind of talking about different media and how things get communicated. Is there anything that you do to adapt your communication style when working with different clients or across different industries?
Definitely. I've worked with a lot of clients in a lot of different industries, so I feel like that has given me the ability to kind of know what questions to ask and how to ask those, particularly at the beginning of a relationship. So I think the thing that I do first is start kind of reading their existing content. Like if it's something that they are happy with, then that gives me kind of a background of what has worked for them in the past and what communication they prefer and what has worked for their audience. If they don't like it, I think that also gives me information of what not to do and what hasn't worked and what they're hoping to move on from. It also kind of gives me information about like little details that make a big difference, like phrasing conventions, like industry standards, just the kind of little nuances that are important for writing about, say like lifestyle content versus like healthcare content and
Right.
what kind of um, what kind of wording would be appropriate for one context versus the other. I think that's easier to see when you have existing content to work from.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, you've written several white papers for ClearVoice. Can you share with us a little bit about your process and what it's like to write such research heavy material?
Yeah, those are really fun. They definitely are a challenge for me. Just making sure that I have the time to be able to kind of do it in phases. So research and then walk away for a day and then do an outline and then walk away for a day and kind of give that time to marinate and process in
Right.
my own brain and so I can think things through. I think the worst thing I could do to myself is put a lot of time pressure on and try and make connections in a way that is, unnatural. Like, I don't think anyone really is able to process things that quickly, or if they are, maybe they're running some big company. But I think it is really valuable to be able to give your brain time to make and grow those connections. And I think it makes the piece a lot more interesting because you're able to take time to connect different things that you might not have thought of before or um, expand on say, like the implications of something or the benefits of something, which might not have come to your brain immediately, that may have taken a day or two to kind of marinate.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's totally a skill because it's not easy to walk away from something and then come back and like still have it fresh in your mind and
Yeah.
make those connections. So that's definitely something I think that is not a writer you maybe wouldn't understand or
Yeah. Oh my
like
gosh.
know is part of that process. So
Hmm.
very cool. Well, we're going to pivot just a little bit. In our pre-interview, we learned that you started your career as a theater stage manager in Canada.
Hmm.
Can you share with us a little bit about what it was like for you transitioning from such a group focused activity to something that's more of an individual experience?
Yeah, definitely. I think people who are in theater tend to be very creative, and I think as a writer, it's also a very creative profession, and so I think there are a lot of ways that those two connect. But for me, it was really nice to be able to move from being in a very group focused environment where the focus is very much on like group creativity. And, you would never go to a play and say, oh, I'm the person that made this one decision, or like, I'm the person that asked this actor to say this line in this way. Like, it's egotistical and something that someone would never do, but it's also just unrealistic. Like in those environments, creativity is something that is fostered and cultured as a group. Um, and so I appreciated that, and it was a really good place to grow. But as a person that was kind of interested in exploring my own creativity and my own capability in the world of writing, I was really glad to get more opportunities to explore on my own and eventually build a freelance career kind of based on that initial exploration.
Awesome. Very cool. As far as exploring and growing goes, what are your future goals or aspirations as a content writer and strategist?
I think it's pretty simple. Like, I just want to create good work. I want to continue expanding my skills, and expanding my connections with new and existing clients. One of the things that I think was less present in the early phase of my career was a more personal connection with clients and with people that I'm working on projects with, whether that's like a website or a white paper or an article. I think being able to collaborate with other freelancers is definitely something that I want to explore more in the next phase of my career.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, Jordana, thank you so much for joining us today. We'll be back with more interviews with these dynamic writers and industry leaders. To learn more about our amazing content specialists, visit clearvoice.com.